mother was born in Mexico and came here at about 2 years old. My father was born in New Mexico, Colorado, served in World War II in the Pacific for 4 years. It was there at Randolph Field that he roomed with my mother's brother. And so they made friends, and that uncle of mine brought my dad to their home on a Sunday, and that's how he met my mom. And so the rest is history. We are rooted here in San Antonio and have been ever since. I grew up on the west side, and it was a block full of civil service workers who were all veterans of the war. It was a very patriotic block and a little piece of Americana, you know, in the middle of the west side of San Antonio. We were an ideal setting of striving people, good neighbors, best friends, in the midst of all the changes that were occurring in San Antonio. We were sort of untouched in many ways. I like to say it was a Norman Rockwell picture of a classic American growing up, except all the faces were brown. And they built a business, my grandfather, a very substantial business on the west side, a printing company. Of us, 5 siblings, went to Little Flower, and then were blessed with the opportunity to go to Catholic high schools. I went to Central Catholic. I went from Central Catholic to Texas A&M. It was one of the decisive experiences in my life because I was on my own in a university, but also military setting, the Corps of Cadets at A&M, en route to becoming a commissioned officer. A lot of leadership opportunities within the Corps. And so it was during that period that I knew I wanted to commit to some kind of profession that had to do with helping build the country. I thought it would probably be the military or maybe something like the Foreign Service. But as it turned out, in 1968, we lived through one of the most tumultuous years in American history between the Vietnam War and the war protests and President Johnson stepping down, and then Dr. King being assassinated in April, and then Bobby Kennedy being assassinated in June, and then the cities burning all over America, and Vietnam riots at the Democratic Convention in the summer. It was one of the most tumultuous years. Highlighted for me the importance of selecting work to do that related to solving some of America's unresolved problems. I finished my undergraduate studies at A&M on a Saturday, and I started working in the city manager's office in San Antonio on Monday. And that was a great experience for that summer. And then I was sent back here as part of my master's program to work on the west side in a program called Model Cities on the west side of San Antonio. Then I realized that I needed to study more of budgets and finance, not just planning and programs, but budgets. So I enrolled in the doctoral program at George Washington University in Washington, and I had the good fortune of landing a job at the National League of Cities. So I went from the local city government, city hall, neighborhood kind of initiatives to the national issues of cities. I did want to immerse myself in the city, and I always find that it's better to learn by seeing and doing than reading and talking about it. So I did, over on weekends, spend time with the firefighters, literally in the fire station overnight, went out on calls with them. Similarly, the police, EMS, garbage crews.
We have a two-lane situation which has to take the volume of 3 and 4 lanes, and we've created a very severe bottleneck here just on the outskirts of the central business district of San Antonio. Well, our city planning department has already proposed widening IH-10 at this location, but the fact of the matter is that the funds which would be necessary for highway department participation simply don't exist.
And it was very helpful to me to get that sense. I'm just a person who does better if I can touch it, feel it, see it. No, I think that I had in mind that someday I would like to be mayor of San Antonio, because there had not been a Latino mayor of San Antonio since Juan Seguin in 1836. And the mayor of San Antonio was generally the leader at the pinnacle of the business community of San Antonio, like Mayor McAllister. And pretty much all the other mayors were sort of hand-selected by the business community. So how does a 33-year-old Latino, West Side resident, university professor become mayor of San Antonio? Kind of a crazy idea. But what I found when I went on the city council was that there was a big gap in the understanding of what needed to be done to build a truly inclusive city. We had poor people getting gouged with utility bills that were breaking their back. We had the water system extending water to new subdivisions and allocating the cost back to the current rate base of poor people. We had all kinds of inequities in the extension of city services, streets, sidewalks, even police services. So we came up with a mantra we called who benefits and who pays. And the mismatch between who was benefiting and who was paying for it was so vast and so unfair and so clear when explicated, when explained, that it made my reputation on the city council. And on the basis of that, a sort of a voice of change, a voice of fairness, and a voice of a different kind of future where we sought economic development, but for jobs and for incomes and for creating a strengthened middle class. That got me elected mayor in 1981.
I have a great fear that no matter how successful we might be in the short run, we're not going to have created a stake among the people of San Antonio that the momentum we're creating today ought to be carried over into the future. And the best way to do that is to involve people in the goal-setting process and commit yourself to following their suggestions and advice.
A stronger economy, better jobs, better pay, and a more fair structure. But it all starts with growth. I used to say, I want to be a two-fisted boxer, not a boxer with one punch, but two fists. One fist is we grow the economy. We do what needs to be done to create job growth. Real substantial economic engine with strength and durability. And then secondly, we create the linkages, harness it so that it can work for those who are marginalized, those who are poor, those who've been on the outside. Well, there's a kind of a legend that San Antonio had been actually hostile to bringing in outside industry because the leaders that be in that era were pretty parochial and liked the city as a low-wage town, was good for their businesses, and they were the unquestioned leaders, and no sense bringing people in who would upset the apple cart. But and it was pretty tumultuous. It was pretty ragged, pretty loud debates on these subjects in those days. I mean, the city was, right on the edge of a meltdown. But the city was actually, the community was actually touting as one of the reasons that you should come to San Antonio is because we have a low wages. Well, when you do that, you're attracting more low-wage jobs, you're keeping the wage base low, and who pays for that? All those vast neighborhoods on the west, on the south, on the east side of people who can't move up in life because they're locked into an economy of low-paying jobs.
Now, what's the field of corporate medical research and manufacturing hold for the future? Diagnostic machinery, CAT scanners, nuclear scanners, the so-called bioengineering, which is human parts, that is to say, artificial limbs and arms and joints and pancreas, all kinds of medically related equipment, toxic monitors and instruments. The field is going to be one of the fastest growing in the American industrial economy. The biosciences is a terribly exciting area.
Well, we got 160,000 jobs today in the biomedical sciences. I didn't do that. The people who envisioned the medical center contributed to that. The people who built the University of Texas Health Science Center envisioned that. Foundation for Biomedical Research, now called Biomed SA. There's a lot of players and a lot of institutions. But what I did try to do was explain to people this is an organizing principle, right? Let's not do these things in silos, separately. Let's figure out how we make 2 + 2 = 5. We can literally say to young people in this city, if you study hard, if you master your science and math, you can get a job healing people, never have to leave San Antonio, make a good living, and do the Lord's work. Wow, that's something. I mean, that's cities that manufacture cigarettes as their primary industry can't say that. Cities that do gambling as their primary industry can't say that. We can say we're doing something constructive for humanity. I started going to Japan in 1986 and went every year and had a very strong working relationship with key leaders in Japan that eventually resulted in our getting the Toyota plant. It doesn't get any better than that. One of the leading manufacturers of automobiles in the world, with new age technologies, right? On the south side of San Antonio, in one of our poorest school districts, creating thousands of jobs and bringing 21 additional supplier firms of scale to San Antonio.
Nothing ever develops when people make fun of those who try. My assessment is that if we were able to work up something along the lines of some kind of stadium facilities, and that if we were able to work out whatever differences, and so far I'm just speculating that they exist between Houston and Dallas and ourselves, that we probably could have Major League sports in this town within 10 years.
Well, discussions about San Antonio's proposed domed stadium continued last night. City officials held a workshop at the convention center to discuss the framework of the proposal.
The game plan for the Alamo Dome is getting clearer. Tonight, the ball is in the hands of the city council members. They will approve or reject a contract that calls for private and public financing of the stadium complex.
But the city isn't sure how it will pay its share. Even though raising the sales tax has been abandoned, the mayor doesn't know if the city will have to raise other taxes.
Whatever we have to do to the tune of $2 million or $4 million is better than $150 million, which would have come out of the taxpayers' pockets via the sales tax.
The Dome was about assuring San Antonio's place as a competitor for professional sports, because that's an element in America of how you recognize a city.
Come on, San Antonio, suit up and sign up. Get your season tickets and join our team.
Its scale, its prosperity, its significance on the national scene. San Antonio was the largest city in America to have no major sports facility. Our biggest football facility was Alamo Stadium, which sat 22,000 people and had come together in the Depression, right? And the idea, of course, was to try eventually to put us in position to get an NFL franchise, right? Admittedly. But that dome was home to the Spurs' first championship, and then to the Alamo Bowl, and then to UTSA's Division I program, and to numerous Final Fours, men's and women's basketball, volleyball, etc. So I think it was, it has accomplished its purpose in every respect but one, and that is we don't have an NFL team. So it may be that we're just doomed not to be an NFL city with the Dallas Cowboys claiming this region as theirs. And that's okay. My proudest accomplishment as mayor is not a moment or an event or a facility or an achievement, but it is rather being part of creating a new collaborative spirit in the city, making ethnicity matter less and collaboration matter more.
I've lived through disappointments, and I've lived through pain. I'm going to make a constructive life. I had to face up when I left office in 1989 to the question of what I wanted to do with my life. You know, you're hurt, You liked what you did, the reasons why you had to give it up. It was painful to go through some of the publicity attendant to that period. But your life is not over. I was 41 at the time. You know, it's not over. You got 40 years of productive life ahead of you. What are you going to do with it?